On a quiet day in Kyiv, Ukraine, sometime in the early 2000s, a man appeared in the middle of the city, confused, agitated, and disoriented. He was dressed in clothing decades out of style, a long beige coat, narrow tie, and polished leather shoes. In his hands, he clutched a vintage Soviet-era camera. Eyewitnesses say he looked stunned by his surroundings. He stopped in front of street lights, stared at passing cars, and gazed up at buildings as if he had never seen anything like them before. He was taken into custody, not because he was dangerous, but because he appeared lost in time. Officers escorted him through the station's main entrance. He didn't resist, he didn't run, but he also didn't speak, not right away. One officer later recalled that the man kept looking at the windows, mesmerized by the traffic outside, as if he'd stepped into another world. And in a way, he had. In the holding room, they asked for his name. "Ponomarenko," he said quietly. "Sergei Ponomarenko." He spoke in clean, old-fashioned Russian, polite, measured, clear. Then came the questions. His birth date, 1932. His age, 26. The current year, 1958, he answered without hesitation. But outside that room, it was not 1958. It was over 40 years later. The officers exchanged looks. Maybe it was a prank, maybe the man was delusional, but something about him didn't add up. His shoes, pristine leather soles, no modern branding. His tie, thin and high knot, like something out of a Khrushchev-era newspaper. The fabric of his coat, wool, slightly worn, handmade. And that camera, the kind of model that hadn't been manufactured since the Cold War. The vintage camera still held a roll of undeveloped film. Authorities contacted a local lab with access to legacy equipment. Rare, but not impossible. They developed the negatives in silence. Several black and white images emerged, grainy but intact. Streets, buildings, a woman smiling by a tree, a man standing in front of an automobile that hadn't existed since the 1950s. The film was authentic. No signs of tampering, no post-processing. It was the real thing. Investigators grew uneasy. They checked medical records, census files, military databases. And then, they found it. A man named Sergei Ponomarenko had existed in Soviet records, born in 1932. A resident of Kyiv, amateur photographer, engaged to a young woman named Valentina. But there was something strange. The records showed he had disappeared completely sometime in the late 1950s. There were no further entries, no death certificate, no confirmed sightings. Just gone. The last official notation in his file was a missing persons report filed by his fiancée in 1958. The pieces didn't make sense. This man hadn't just claimed to be from the past. Everything about him matched it. His fingerprints weren't in any modern database. His dialect was regionally accurate for mid-century Kyiv. Even his dental work was consistent with technology available only in the 1950s Soviet Union. Still, it was impossible, wasn't it? Had he been in hiding for decades? A patient from a forgotten institution? A performance artist? A conspiracy nut? Theories swirled behind closed doors, but none of them explained how he'd arrived, looking exactly as he did in 1958. Officials decided to question him again, this time with audio and video recording. They wanted answers, proof, something to expose the hoax. But what they captured only deepened the mystery. This is where the story truly begins. The footage from that room, the interrogation of Sergei Ponomarenko, has become one of the strangest unsolved recordings in modern history. And if what he says next is to be believed, then time, as we understand it, is far less stable than we ever imagined. On April 23, 2006, Kyiv. Inside a quiet, windowless room at a local psychiatric facility, two men sat across from one another. One was a state psychologist, the other, Sergei Ponomarenko. He spoke calmly with a slight Kyiv accent. His voice was measured, but his eyes held unease. On the table between them was an old FED-2 rangefinder camera. Its worn leather strap was cracked. Dust clung to its dials. Sergei claimed he had simply stepped outside his apartment to take a few photographs, that it was a sunny afternoon in 1958, that he had been out with his fiancée, Valentina. When the psychologist asked him how he had arrived here, into a Kyiv more than 4 decades advanced, Sergei blinked, confused. He had no answer. He said he saw a strange object in the sky, and then everything changed. A few seconds later, he was standing on a street he didn't recognize, surrounded by cars he'd never seen before and people carrying strange electronic devices. He was frightened, but he was coherent, not delusional. He remembered his full name, his birth date, the neighborhood he lived in before his apparent disappearance. His behavior raised no red flags, no signs of psychosis, no incoherence. His responses were unusually calm. Clinical reports from the evaluation concluded that Sergei was mentally completely sound. The only thing that didn't make sense was time. Investigators attempted to cross-reference Sergei's claims. Public records from the 1950s were checked. They found something chilling. There was indeed a Sergei Ponomarenko, born in 1932, who had lived in Kyiv. He was a radio technician, engaged to a woman named Valentina Kulikova. In April 1958, he was reported missing under strange circumstances. No body was ever found. The case went cold. The files hadn't been touched in decades. The photo Sergei provided of Valentina matched an old ID card issued to a woman of the same name. An aged copy of her file was found in an archive, still alive in her 70s. Investigators contacted her. Valentina lived alone in a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city. Her voice cracked with emotion when she was shown a recent photo of Sergei, taken during his brief detainment. She whispered, "That's him," exactly as he looked, the day he disappeared. The authorities were baffled. This wasn't someone trying to impersonate an old flame. Sergei had not aged. He looked exactly as he did in 1958. Valentina wept, and then asked the investigators something that no one could answer. Where has he been all this time? The final piece of the puzzle was Sergei's camera, a vintage FED-2 model, still functioning. Inside was a full roll of undeveloped film, 35mm. A specialist was brought in to carefully process the film, which had remained sealed in the camera for over 40 years. What developed on that film would only deepen the mystery. The photographs were consistent with his story. Pictures of Kyiv's skyline, trams from the 1950s, street corners that had long since transformed. But one image stood out. A strange object hovered in the sky, fuzzy, unfocused, saucer-like. Sergei said it was the last thing he saw before he found himself transported. Experts debated its authenticity. No clear signs of editing or manipulation were found. Given the age and chemistry of the film, if it was faked, it had to have been done decades ago. But Sergei didn't live decades ago. According to him, he had just taken those photos. The investigation was now beyond the scope of the local authorities. Psychological professionals were asked to keep Sergei under light observation while additional analysis was conducted. For 48 hours, he remained under surveillance, calm, cooperative, patient. On the 3rd day, he was gone. No record of escape, no signs of forced exit, no broken locks, no tampering with security footage. His room was empty. His clothes were left folded. The camera remained on the table. Sergei Ponomarenko, who had vanished in 1958, reappeared in the 2000s and passed multiple psychological screenings, was gone once again, just like before. Time. We all feel it. We all live under its rule, but no one truly understands it. It governs every second of our lives, from the moment we are born to the moment we cease to exist. We count it, chase it, waste it, and fear it. But what exactly is it? We assume time is simple, linear, forward-moving, a straight line from yesterday to today to tomorrow. But when you peel back the surface, the truth becomes far stranger than fiction. To understand how someone like Sergei Ponomarenko could vanish in 1958 and reappear in the 2000s unchanged, we must ask a terrifying question. What if time doesn't move the way we think it does? Most people believe time is absolute, that it ticks away at the same rate for everyone, everywhere. But over a century ago, one man shattered that idea forever. Albert Einstein. In 1905, Einstein introduced a radical theory, special relativity. He showed that time is not constant. It flows differently depending on how fast you're moving. The faster you go, the slower time passes for you compared to someone standing still. This isn't science fiction. It's been tested, proven. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station orbit Earth at nearly 28,000 kilometers per hour. Because of this speed, they experience time just a little bit more slowly than we do. It's minuscule, fractions of a second, but it's real, measurable. Their clocks tick slower. Their bodies age slightly less. This phenomenon is called time dilation, and it gets more extreme the faster you travel. At 99% the speed of light, time for a traveler would pass so slowly that what feels like minutes to them could be years for us. In theory, you could fly into space at near light speeds and return to Earth to find that everyone you knew has aged decades. Time, as Einstein revealed, is flexible, warped by speed, and it's also warped by gravity. 10 years after his first theory, Einstein unveiled something even more profound: general relativity. According to this theory, massive objects bend the fabric of space and time, just as a bowling ball stretches a trampoline. And that distortion doesn't just affect space, it also alters time. Near a massive object like a black hole, time slows down dramatically. In 2014, the movie Interstellar brought this idea to the big screen, portraying astronauts who spend minutes near a black hole, only to return and find years have passed for everyone else. And though the film was fictional, the science wasn't. In fact, physicist Kip Thorne, who advised the film, based those calculations on real mathematics, the kind used by NASA and astrophysicists worldwide. Time, it seems, is deeply connected to the fabric of space itself, and that opens the door to something even more bizarre. Hidden within the equations of general relativity are exotic solutions, strange possibilities that allow for what physicists call closed time-like curves. In plain terms, paths through space that loop back in time. These curves could exist around rotating black holes, cosmic strings, or through hypothetical tunnels called wormholes. Imagine a wormhole as a shortcut, a tunnel between two distant points in space-time. If one end of that tunnel moves at high speed or sits near a massive gravitational source, time at that end would move differently. Step through the tunnel, and you could emerge before you entered. This isn't fantasy. These scenarios fall directly out of Einstein's mathematics. The equations work, but there's a catch. To create and stabilize a traversable wormhole, you'd need a form of matter that violates the known laws of physics, something with negative energy or exotic mass. No such material has been found. Not yet. Still, scientists like Kip Thorne, Michio Kaku, and even Stephen Hawking have all acknowledged, if the universe allows for wormholes, then time travel may not just be possible, it may be inevitable. Beyond relativity, we find another mystery, one even more disturbing: the quantum world. At the smallest levels of existence, far below atoms and electrons, particles behave in ways that defy logic. They can be in two places at once. They can pass through barriers that should be impenetrable. They can teleport across space. And they can become entangled, such that the state of one particle instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. These are not theories. These are experimentally proven phenomena, and they suggest that reality is far stranger than our senses can perceive. Some physicists believe that time, in the quantum world, doesn't even exist in the same way it does for us. Others go further. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that every possible event, every choice, every particle movement spawns a new universe, an entire branch of reality where that outcome becomes real. In this model, the universe isn't a single line. It's a multiverse, a web of infinite timelines, each diverging from the last at the tiniest fork in the road. Could Sergei Ponomarenko have slipped between these branches? Entered a version of reality where time progressed differently? Returned to a present that no longer matched the one he left behind? The math doesn't rule it out. And yet, some scientists now question whether time exists at all. According to theoretical physicist Julian Barber, time may be an illusion, a human construct invented to make sense of change. In his model, the universe is a collection of static snapshots, like frames on a film reel. Motion and time are just the way our brains interpret the transitions between them. Other physicists, like Carlo Rovelli, argue that time is not fundamental, that it's not built into the structure of the universe, but rather emerges from entropy, the tendency for systems to move from order to disorder. In this view, the arrow of time, from past to future, only exists because of memory, because we can remember yesterday, but not tomorrow. Rewind the universe to its lowest entropy state, and the arrow reverses. Forward becomes backward, cause becomes effect. It's possible then that time isn't a straight road, but a mirage, a sensation generated by consciousness. If that's true, then Sergei's appearance, however impossible, may be less about violating the laws of physics, and more about revealing how little we actually understand them. Sergei Ponomarenko told investigators he saw something in the sky, a strange object. Then he found himself in the future. He didn't understand it. Neither did the psychologists who evaluated him, and neither, truly, do we. What we do know is this: time is not what it appears to be. It bends, it stretches, it warps, it loops. It may even be an illusion. Whether Sergei stumbled into a wormhole, fell through a quantum fracture, or simply revealed a hole in our model of reality, his case remains one of the most unsettling time anomalies ever recorded. Science hasn't caught up, but it's trying. Sergei Ponomarenko may be a myth, or a man out of time, but either way, his story forces us to confront a terrifying truth. We don't understand time. Not fully, not yet, and maybe we never will. But here on Uncharted Odyssey, we chase the questions anyway, because this channel isn't just about the known, it's about the unknowable. If you felt something tonight, if the mystery kept you watching, then this journey is yours too. So subscribe, join us, because on this channel, time is just the beginning.